In today's episode, wiring. Um, so this wire was a 3-conductor shielded wire. I only need 2. I only need 2 for my position and strobe that's going to be in the tail. And then what I'm going to do with the other line is see those 3 holes all the way down there. 1, 2, 3. Those were for an ADS-B antenna. I'm going to install this guy in there in place, and that'll be a belly beacon for night ops. So there's that, and then we're going to wire in the servo, pitch servo, which will sit right here. Today's project. Let's go. All right, so the idea here is that we will be joining the tail cone to the rest of the fuselage that was just completed pretty soon. And once that is done, you getting anything done in the tail becomes a lot more difficult, right? Because now you can't just sort of lean in there. You've got to climb into the fuselage or something like that to do that. Or if you've got it on a rotisserie, you can, turn it upside down and sort of lean into it, into the tail from there. But it's definitely a lot more troublesome. Just to be 100% transparent, I have had to do more stuff in the tail since the fuselage and the tail cone were joined together. Go figure, right? Of course, you think you can prep for things, and you can't. Yeah. So this beacon, there's not a lot of lighting for this plane on the ground from behind, especially with the lighting options I've chosen. It's just going to have one small nav or position and strobe light on the tail, and if it's a tail dragger, that's going to be very close to the ground. So I decided that, it's probably best if I just have something like this belly beacon here that's pretty far back, that is just going to sort of, give a good reflection of light on the ground. So this thing is pretty bright. It should put a nice big red spot every couple of seconds on the ground as I'm taxiing around. I just want to make sure that if anybody's behind me in the evening at an airport somewhere, there's no question that there is an actual airplane there. Because let's be honest, planes can sometimes be hard to see on the ground at night if they're not directly in front of you. I see them at the airport all the time at night where it's like, is that an airplane taxiing across the field? I don't know, maybe. There it is, it's lit up. So the beacon's installed. Now it's time to do some wiring for the pitch servo, which should be right there. But I didn't bring it up from the basement. I also did chop the connector off all those wires because Molex can go fly a kite if I'm going to be nice about it. Couldn't even pull the damn wires out of the connector, so off it goes. So I'm going to replace it with these guys. I can't remember what they're called off the top of my head. Anyway, they're weatherproof, but good connector, solid connector. I'm going to make some space, probably bring it through here or something. I know that this goes, there's a rib here and a rib here, so I may end up, I'm trying to understand what goes in each of these places, open something up here or something for this connector. I'll put half of it on one side or something. In any case, moving away from Molex connectors. I thought they were okay, and every time I try to use them, they either don't connect properly or they break or they're just annoying, so whatever. Anyway, going to do the wiring, and we're going to be using this, what do they call this, Gigaflex? Gigaflight. So this is a special Gigaflight CAN bus wire for the pitch servo, because it's going to be the end of the CAN run. So the CAN run is going to go from the pitch servo up to a connector of some sort that I'm going to put here, and then through the fuse up to the panel, and obviously have a bunch of stops in the panel, but the last stop will be in the pitch servo. And one of the things about that is that when it's the last stop, you have to terminate it. And it took me way too long to find this, but it's right in the documentation. I'm going to say something about it anyway. But on these GSA 28 pitch servos, if you put pins 3 and 4 together, there's an internal resistor that that terminates the CAN bus at that device. My early termination at the GMU11, it needed a secondary device between the harness and the actual magnetometer, and I think that's just because there weren't enough pins available. But on the GMU or GSA 28, you can just ground these two pins. I'm sorry, not ground these two pins, but connect these two pins to terminate the CAN bus at that device. So we'll be doing that. I'd like to make another call out for another sort of loop back wire on the GSA 28. And this is one of the reasons that I mentioned in the previous note that I did have to get back into the tail. That's just one of them. I've been back in there like several times and spent like, well, if I look at my build log, it's something like 10 hours of going back in that area and rewiring. So if you are also building and you're looking at doing this sort of thing yourself, really plan it out well. I did some planning, not a lot, and I end up regretting it because, you know, you got to sort of get into really weird positions to get into there after that, and you end up with like deep bruises because you're laying on bulkheads and crap. And it's like, why does my arm hurt in my shoulder muscle and I haven't lifted anything in days? Oh, it's because I was laying on my arm against a frickin' 32 thousandths piece of aluminum on the edge, of course. Anyway, to the point that I started with, the loop back. So if you are installing GSA 28 servos, pay close attention to the wiring pinouts in the documentation. There's the loop back for CAN termination, and there's also a loop back for device setting. On the roll servo, you don't have to connect any of the pins, but if it's a pitch servo or a yaw servo, you need to put a wire between two other pins. I can't remember which numbers they are. I think it's like 5 and 7 or something like that for a pitch servo. So that was another thing that I had to go back into the tail and add to this connector that I'm working on right now. That was just like, why the hell did I not realize that before? I just didn't pay close enough attention to the documentation. I really should have. Another reason I'm back in the tail is that I didn't realize that I wanted to run. I didn't really think about it, but like I already had some wire that Vans had provided that has 5 conductor non-shielded wire that comes from the panel. It's meant for, with 5 conductors in it, non-shielded, it's meant for the pitch servo, realistically. I'm sorry, not pitch servo, the pitch trim servo, right? So that's the elevator trim tab. You've got a voltage, a common or a ground, and then a sense to tell it like where the position is, and that's just for the position sensor. And then you've got 2 lines for actually actuating the trim tab. I didn't think about it, but I was going to be, my original wiring that I'm working on here has 2 different lines. So I've got like the pitch trim power for the, forwards or backwards, up and down, whatever you want to call it, coming out the left side of the tail, and well, technically it's the right side, I guess, if you're sitting forward, and then the sensor, the pitch trim position sensor, was going to be coming out the other side of the tunnel. And it's like, I don't want to have things crossing back and forth between the sides, so I ended up having to undo some of that wiring and run it on the other side and change the connectors out. So that was just another mess of things that I had to do in the tail cone once it was all attached, because I didn't plan well enough. So take your time and plan things out. I thought I was being cool and was going to switch to these Deutsche connectors, which, by the way, these connectors are a lot nicer than Molex, because, especially in this case, if I wanted to switch from one pin, one side to the other side, all I did was just snap out a couple of pins, change the polarity on the pins, because I have a male connector on one side and a female connector on the other side. Not a big deal. But getting the pins out of the connector without destroying the connector, super easy. You really... Molex can sometimes be like that, but it tends to be a real pain in the butt. One other thing that I think we see here as well is the static ports. So you kind of see them on the just in front of that first bulkhead. These are, and I looked them up, the Flyboy Accessories static ports. They are quite nice. I was kind of wondering how I was going to install them, and sort of looked at it and you know what, I just put a hole saw through the port that Vans provides, for the rivet, the big rivet or whatever the heck they have for those. So just put a little, not hole saw, a step drill. You just plop a little step drill in there, drill it out to the right size, and then attach them to the side skins with some tank sealant, and they're good to go. Then you just attach them directly, and I might get this into the next video, I'm not sure if I do it here, to some push to connect fittings and some 90-degree fittings to run the static lines in the standard way that Vans recommends. I'll put a link down below for the Flyboy static ports. Again, they're really nice. I would definitely recommend them. It's just a little bit more beefy than the rivet thing that Vans provides. Yeah, here we go. Just working on those. So I'd already put them in, of course, and this is just doing the static line for them, because I was cutting out the previous one that I had put in. So you just plop some push to connect 90s on there, a T for one side and 90 for the other side, and yeah, that's about it. You just gotta make sure that neither of them flow downward, that they have to go, that if water gets in there, it exits out the static port instead of into the line and into the system. So that does it for this one. It's a little bit longer. Thanks for hanging around. See you next time.